Hello and welcome to the 39 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney, and this evening's episode brought to us by our good friends at S2 Cognition. S2 Cognition delivers a revolutionary approach to helping athletes understand how in-game decisions impact their performance from the youth levels all the way to the pros. And when you talk about pros, you've got to mention the two men joining me tonight, the great Aaron J. Fitt, the great Kendall J. Rogers. Gentlemen, good to see your hats and faces. How we doing? Happy evening to you.
Happy
We're
evening to you,
doing well,
Coach
man.
Roons. Good to see you.
Aaron's looking a little better tonight. He got a good night
Yeah.
of sleep. Kind of the stomach feels better. It looks like he just looks a
Yeah.
little looks fresh right now.
We had a little nasty bug this weekend, but we're on the mend, guys, and happy to be
Played
here with
hurt.
you fine gents. We did.
Played hurt. Yeah, Fitzy did not skip the rankings meeting Sunday evening, even though he was clearly heavily medicated and not feeling 100%. We appreciate that, Fitzy.
Oh, I'm here for you guys.
That's what gamers do. Boys, let me start with some inane banter for this evening. I have decided that on Mondays when we often there's the great Mason Rogers. Does he have anything he'd like to chime in, Kendall? I like it. We like the
No,
nat
he
sounds.
would. There was nothing that he would like to say.
He would just like to say, "Why is Todd Walker ducking me in Mortal Kombat or Death Knell or what are those games called, Fitzy? What's this
Is it
game called?
Fortnite? Is that his
Fortnite.
game?
Yeah.
Fortnite?
Why is Todd Walker ducking him in Fortnite? But that's a
Todd's
yeah.
scared. Todd's
Todd
scared.
is Todd, longtime big leaguer, scared of Mason Rogers. That's a fact.
Yeah, we got it. Well, I tried to add him on Fortnite for my son, and it said that Todd was not accepting Fortnite requests. So my challenge to you, Todd, bring it, dude.
Let's go. Yeah. Stop hiding.
Hey, by the way, speaking of bombs and Todd Walker home runs and things like that, it was kind of interesting. Luke Smalls from 643 Charts sent me this stat from last week just to kind of give you an idea. Like going into last weekend, and there were a lot of home runs hit, but going into last weekend, we were up like 860 home runs year over year. The other thing that I thought was really interesting that Luke sent me, fellas, is that 27.2 of games played going into the weekend had been blowouts. And what that means is that's 8 runs or more per game. That is the run differential.
Wow.
And it's 27.2% of the games played were blowouts. Last year, the number was below 23.
Gotcha. So it's like a 4 or 5% delta.
Yeah.
That's bonkers.
It's interesting.
On blowouts.
Let me ask you guys this question on that regard, though. Like, I've been thinking about this. Like, clearly something's happening with the bats and the baseballs and the combination therein. I mean, it's, the kid for Arizona State, they have a freshman, I think his name's Kian Vu, who's a good little player, San Diego, but he's like a 9-hole center field type. His first career home run happened against Arizona yesterday was an opposite field gap shot. Like, okay, now the little guys are dropping oppo bombs. Here's the question I have for you, though. Like, the pitch timer and the pace of play stuff is working. And if we're going to have more offense, but the games are going to be quicker, I mean, I'll answer first, but I'm curious your thoughts. I'm kind of okay with it. Like, these games are happening fast. There's just more home runs.
Do we have data on the length of game year over year over the first 6 weeks? We should probably, because I'm curious just how much of a difference the pitch timer stuff has made.
Well, I know that's a great call. I'll reach out to Luke tomorrow, but I do know that like 3 weeks in the season, I think the average game was lasting 15 minutes less, which is pretty significant. I mean, 15 minutes less is pretty significant.
No doubt. And I'll tell you guys, like, anecdotally, I had the Brandon Sproat game a couple weeks ago. It was an hour and 50 minutes. I can't remember the last time I've called or been at a college baseball game that was 2 hours or less. Like, that was bonkers. And then last Thursday, this a couple of days ago, I had Duke UNC, and because it was Thursday, Duke did not throw a Friday night arm. They decided to bullpen the Thursday night game. This game had 10 pitchers and 19 free passes. 10 pitchers and 19 free passes, and we were 2 hours and 51 minutes.
Is that right? That's wild.
It is crazy. It's kind of funny though, like watching, you watch like how different batters are. And it was funny watching Florida and Ole Miss the other day on Sunday and watching how like Jacob Gonzalez, obviously like literally never leaves the box during an at-bat. Yep. And it was just funny, like his at-bats were like that because he never leaves the box. So like as soon as the pitch would go back, like the pitcher would go right back on there and throw the pitch. So like his at-bat was lasting like a minute because of the new rules.
Yep. Fitzy, were you at a ballpark Friday night or were you in the cave?
I was at Charlotte DBU saw a gem from Ryan Johnson from Dallas
Yeah.
Baptist, who's really an emerging sophomore, having a great year. Power stuff. He put on a show. He retired. He gave up a 2-run homer in the first inning, and he retired the next 20 batters to end his outing.
Ooh.
So how's that?
That'll work. Kendall, how about you? You were in the home dwelling?
No, I saw UTSA and Rice on Friday. Two quick thoughts on that. Number one, I give Jose Cruz Jr. a lot of credit. Like Rice has gotten much better since the last time I saw them a few weeks ago. They finally have a frontline ace in Parker Smith, just a really impressive pitcher, up to 93, 94 the fastball. Really good slider. They finally have a Friday guy, Parker Banks, who moved there from, was it Davidson in the offseason? He's done a really nice job with that staff. So they're better. They're improved. They're getting better. UTSA, to me, is just like a typical, like really good Conference USA team. They kind of remind me like those vintage, like John McCormick FAU teams. Like, they have 2 or 3 like really solid position players, but the rest of the roster, just a bunch of really good, really solid role players. Josh Colleen's a nice hitter. Antonio Valdez, the Baylor kickback, has done a really nice job this year, hitting well over 400. And, their ace, Luke Malone's tough as nails. The stuff's not overwhelming, but he pounds his own. And then, really the most impressive player I saw for them was Simon Miller out of the bullpen. It was, up to 93, 94. With a really, really good breaking ball. So the big key for the Roadrunners is their ability to turn things over to Simon Miller, and he can kind of extend the game a little bit. He can go 3 or 4 innings. I think he threw 76 pitches out of the bullpen. He did not throw the next day, but he threw 76 pitches out of the bullpen. And so when you have the ability to put a guy out there like that can close a game, or he can go the distance for you, that's a luxury. And so I talked to Pat Hallmark after the game and wrote about those guys. That is a great story because UTSA was a dormant program for years. I mean, they made like the NCAA tournament. I think they won the conference tournament in 15 in their league. But other than that, I think the last time they had been in the tournament was like 04 or 05. And he's done a really nice job. They won 38 games last year. They're well on their way to winning 38 or more games this year. And this is one of those years that like I would love to see program. I get like committees get stuck on this. It's got to be year by year looks at teams. But I'll say this: when I look at programs like Wofford and I look at programs like UTSA, if they go back-to-back years where they're winning 38, 40, 45 games, I want those teams rewarded. Because when you're showing that much consistency and you're winning at that high of a level, you're clearly doing something right. You're clearly a really solid program. And at some point, I like to see those programs get rewarded, even if their resume may not stack up to, a bottom tier, SEC team. I have zero issue with a program like that getting in because I think they deserve it.
I agree with you completely. And I thought, for instance, like I was glad to see Grand Canyon get a bid last year. It's been a steady program, and they did everything, really that they could, except win the last game in the conference tournament. And I would have loved to have seen Wofford get in, and I know we eventually, I think at the very end, we did not project Wofford get in because we just knew what the committee would do.
Yeah.
It's obvious that they seem to do the same thing all the time, but like they deserved it. They deserved to be in. And I'm with you. And I think UTSA, the same thing. UTSA last year deserved to be in. I'd love to see those kind of teams having great seasons get rewarded instead of, as you put it, I think aptly, that the lower tier SEC, ACC teams, the 10th, 11th place team, 9th place team in those leagues. Sure, the metrics are there, and they played a tougher schedule, certainly, but love those quality mid majors, especially the ones that are consistent. And just one more thing, you mentioned Simon Miller for UTSA, the closer. I was just looking at his numbers today. Teaser alert, guys! We got power rankings coming this week. Simon Miller is going to be juiced in the relievers list.
Great reminder on that one.
Check out these numbers, guys. 6-0 out of the bullpen in 10 appearances, 0.64 ERA, 41 strikeouts, 6 walks in 28 innings.
Yeah, he's really good.
And it's real stuff, too. It sounds like that'll play.
Yeah, it's a power arm. It's a really good breaking ball.
Fabulous Roondogs had a team meeting today. I just want to tell the guys, like, hey, you're gonna get screwed in the power rankings. You know it. Like, we got a bullseye on our back. Everybody wants to get the Roondogs. We get it. So I think we settled that. So
the Roondogs,
it is. Go ahead. No, I was going to say it is interesting when we talk about these mid majors, and the unfortunate just reality for mid majors is we were all in the group chat earlier today talking about Grand Canyon. Like GCU is literally already in a spot where they probably have to win the conference tournament.
No doubt.
Like their RPI is like is in the 70s as they enter conference play last weekend. And like as much as it stinks, like they are a program now. Like Jacob Wilson will have to win the conference tournament to be in the postseason.
To me, it's the biggest argument for 72 teams in the tournament is that even though 4 of those extra teams are probably going to Power 5 leagues, I'm fine with 4 hold your nose Power 5 teams if we can get 4 Woffords, Grand Canyons, UTSAs in. Like I don't care. Like
what
that,
about
that
what about this idea? And this is kind of open a can of worms, but I think back to the college football playoff where they like take the best G5 team. Like, what if we expanded the baseball tournament to whatever 72, and like 4 of those teams have to be from the mid-major ranks?
You'd have my vote.
That'd be cool.
I like that, and I will, because I have to acknowledge, since I just was talking a moment ago about how I like the idea of more of those top mid majors and fewer of the lower tier power conference teams. Who won it all last year, guys? It was Ole Miss.
Right.
You know,
that's
I mean,
right.
like that's the thing is if you're the last team of the tournament and you're an SEC team or an ACC team like Virginia was, in 2015, or a Pac-12 team like Oregon State was in 2007, you could win it all. But like, is a UTSA or Grand Canyon going to win it all? I mean, if they get in, no. I still think it doesn't mean that doesn't affect whether or not they're deserving. But I mean, like, the committee is part of the committee's remit is to put together the best 64 teams, the ones that they think can make a deep run. And so we're kind of like contradicting ourselves here.
I mean, it's a good discussion. By the way, on that note, I'm going to segue us a little bit. How about we talk about Ole Miss and Mississippi State being combined 0-12?
Hey, can you hold that thought for 1 second, Kendall?
Okay.
We're going to come back to that in 1 second.
Okay.
I asked you guys what you were doing on Friday night because I had a blast on Friday night. Now, speaking of having a blast, gentlemen, Blast Baseball is a new partner of ours. And if you're ready to dominate at the plate, Blast Baseball is trusted by more MLB and college teams than any other hitting solution. The Blast sensor attaches to the knob of any bat, providing real-time feedback with every swing. Just go to blastmotion.com, enter the code D1Baseball at checkout. You'll save $10. That's blastmotion.com. Now, I did not have a blast on Friday night because I was using a blast sensor, although that would have been fun. I was in a bar in a hotel in Boston because I had a 6 a.m. flight out of Logan Airport on Saturday morning. But here's why I was having a blast. I had my phone and maybe an adult beverage, and I'm just hammering the Watch ESPN app and watching these incredible college baseball games. Like, there were so many compelling games this weekend. The Mizzou South Carolina series was really fun. LSU Arkansas on Friday was really fun. UK and Alabama was a fun series. Washington and UCLA had a ton of moments. That Oklahoma State Baylor Friday night game was really cool. Tech and UT. So anyway, I say that like there was a little bit of a postseason atmosphere to it. The question before we go around the leagues, and we'll start with the SEC, Kendall, I want to bring something up. Today's Monday. You guys do the chats on Monday. I love, my favorite guilty pleasure right now is looking at Kendall's timeline and the comments after you post the rankings. I love it. And I want to give a fan base of the day every week from now on. And today's fan base of the day is UW, Washington. Now, it's really their SID because he was amazing.
That was well played.
Oh, my gosh. So good. The Isaiah Thomas GIF. Have you seen it yet, Fitzy?
I have not. No, I try to minimize my Twitter exposure on Mondays, guys. It's not good for my mental health.
Yeah, I'm leaning into it. I'm doing the opposite. It's my Kardashians. Like, no one would accuse, someone watching the Kardashians as good for their mental health, but this is my new guilty pleasure. Fitzy, I'm telling you, it's a safe space. You should look at the UW Twitter account. You will spit your drink out. It is so well played by them.
Well, can I just say, like, what was even funnier than Isaiah Thomas and sorry, John Savage, UCLA, but the Hollywood sign with the 2 L's on it.
Oh,
that was great.
I did see that one. That was outstanding.
To the victor go the spoils. It's so good. Yeah, it's like it's great. I think it's awesome. So here's to you. Was there any fan base in the chat today that was ablaze that you guys would like to recognize?
People are really mad that we still have Stanford in front of South Carolina.
Interesting.
But they weren't too bad. They weren't too bad.
Got it. Well, okay, UW, you get the award. So Let's go to the leagues, boys. Let's pop around the leagues. So Kendall, you were taking us to the SEC, and you were going to mention. I'm gonna one up your stat, Kendall. How about this? A&M, Ole Miss, and Hail State are 1-17 in the league right now.
Oof.
That's
so. Can I just say this?
Champions and a team that was in the Final Four last year.
Yeah. So let me just give you some stats, gentlemen.
Please.
Mississippi State. I'm just going to say these two stats, and it's like really that all needs to be said about Mississippi State. Mississippi State is 209th in the country in ERA. They are 225th in the country in fielding percentage. You literally have zero chance to win a series in the SEC with those if those two numbers stay the same. Period.
Yikes. Yep. And speaking of last year's Final Four, Oklahoma takes it on the chin this weekend, gets swept by Kansas State. They're 2-4. I mean, you know, that that Final Four not holding up so great right now.
Fitzy, let me ask you this, and Kendall, you're going to answer this too. I
Sure.
will as well. Right now in the SEC West, I'm just talking about conference play. 5 of the SEC West teams are under 500 in the league. And I feel like that was not something digestible in the preseason, that the West would be, you know, considerably lesser than the East in the SEC. Right. Fitzy, my question to you, will that hold up? When we look at this at the end, will we say that the East was actually a better division than the West?
Ooh, what a great question. I was grappling with this in the chat today because somebody asked a very interesting question that I'm gonna redirect here. I'm gonna deflect your question.
What is like a political debate? You're just gonna answer a question and deflect it to me.
So you're in Kendall's realm now.
Yeah. So somebody asked in the chat, how many wins will it take to win the SEC regular season title this year, and will it come from the East or the West? And I thought that was a fascinating question because, you know, at the one hand, I think instinctively you think, well, the West is going to be, you know, harder. There's the teams at the bottom are going to be better. So like, it feels like it's more likely that maybe a team from the East has a chance to rack up those wins. But then you look at the records and it's like, wait a minute, like the two, you know, those 3 teams in the West are combined 1-17. And then the East, you've got Kentucky and Missouri. They're actually playing well. And only one team with a losing record in the East in conference play. And that's Georgia, who, you know, I think we also believe is better than this 1-5 record. But, so I don't know the answer. I don't know that I gave a satisfactory answer in the chat. I want to hear what you guys think.
I kind of like the East. Obviously, I believe in Tennessee. I really believe in Florida. I really believe in Vanderbilt. And the other thing about it, too, is like I'm still a little iffy on Kentucky. Like I love what they're doing right now, guys. I want to see what they do moving forward. But I'm a little surprised that I've come this far. And Aaron will give me hell for this. But I'm starting to actually believe in South Carolina because, I mean, they had a couple of games over the weekend against Missouri to where in the past, like South Carolina would have folded like a cheap tent, or they would have, you know, they would have just found a way to lose. They found a way to win a couple of games over the weekend against a good Missouri team that they would have lost in the past. So, like, I feel like the South Carolina team just has a different vibe about them. They're getting big hits when they need them. They're making big pitches when they need them. And by the way, Will Sanders has really struggled. And he's a guy that I feel like is, at some point, like he's going to be Will Sanders again. And once he is that guy, like they're 23-2, they'll be even more dangerous.
I would just like to officially welcome you to the Gamecock party. It's been fun for some of us since the fall. We're you know, we can get you a cocktail. You know, they're in the corner.
I'm feeling really bad about not being on the Wake Forest bandwagon right now.
Oh man, yeah. Man. Oh boy, everything's coming up Fitzy right now.
It is coming up Fitzy.
I gotta give you a little credit.
Here's the deal, boys. Go ahead, Fitzy. You do your thought. And
well, just a quick thought. I mean, the thing I love about South Carolina also is their bullpen. And again, teasing the power rankings, like there are 4 relievers for South Carolina that are very much in the mix for our reliever top 50 list in the country. I mean, I don't know how you separate them. They've all been really good. They all have stuff. So, I mean, you got Noah Hall pitching like an ace. So even though Will Sanders hasn't been really, like, you've got an ace right behind him, and Jack Mahoney as well. I mean, it's just, you know, they're going to have all 3 weekend starters probably in our top 100 starters. They're going to have 4 potential bullpen guys on our relievers list, and they're hitting a ton of home runs. Gavin Cassis has been a monster, of course. Cole Messina has been great. You know, he's really emerged. I mean, it does feel like there's real firepower in the lineup, and there's real. I mean, I think they're for real, you know. And so I guess the answer is this: Roons, the East is better because you've got 4 premier teams with South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Florida, and Tennessee. And I think you've only got 2 in the West. I think it's just LSU and Arkansas. We had Ole Miss stuffed in the preseason. We had A&M stuffed in the preseason. I think without Hunter Elliott, it totally changes Ole Miss, obviously. And, obviously, like, you lose your back end piece, Josh Mallett. I can't remember if he was hurt before we released our top 25 or not.
I think he was hurt like right before
or right after. I don't know. I feel like we had already decided on that before.
Yeah.
But take those 2 guys out. We were counting on Grayson Saunier being a huge freshman. He's got like a 7 ERA. That's not going as planned. I don't know. As much as I love their position player group, I don't know that I see them becoming an elite team this year with the state of their pitching.
It's just so hard on your offense when you have to score 10 runs a game. Like, your hitters know they have to put up a number like that, and then you start to try and force things. And I think to put the East has significantly better pitching as a division than the West. And some of that's injury related, but I will say this: like LSU, if I'm going to nitpick them, their bullpen is starting to get a little dicey. Like Christian Little is really struggling right now. Who's the lefty? Kendall Ackenhausen or
Nate Ackenhausen? Yeah, I think he was out over the weekend.
Yeah, and then now the Garrett Edwards kid has been a real revelation. Like he's been awesome. And then really the rest of their team is a joke, right? Like Dylan, we're 6 weeks in, and Dylan Cruz is hitting over 500 like it's American Legion baseball. And Paul Skeens, his average fastball, according to Synergy, is 98. I mean, like, I don't think the Phillies have a starting pitcher except for Zach Wheeler that has an average fastball of 98 miles an hour. I mean, it's just insanity.
Yeah, and Tommy Tanks has looked phenomenal at the plate. I mean, we all knew, what he was capable of last year, but like his pitch selection and whatnot this year has just been incredible. Like he was awesome against A&M. He was awesome in the 2 games I saw against Arkansas on ESPN. Like he's been fantastic. But I would say this about the West real quick, to put a bow in the West, is I don't know if you guys disagree, but like of all the teams that have losing records in the West, I think I actually still think A&M is going to end up being pretty good. Like right now they're doing they're just having a weird year. Like their offense actually did enough against Tennessee to win games. Like they actually hit Dolander early. They hit Chase Burns after a couple innings. Like Jace Lavallette's finally starting to figure it out. But what's been really weird about them is like they've scuffled on the mound. This might be the first like Yesky pitching staff that I can remember in a long time that is struggling. I mean, Chris Cortez has more walks already this season than he did all of last year. And Nathan Detmer, I think, is like halfway there. Is like more than halfway to his walk total that he had last year. And they're 2 week through third week of conference play, so they've got to figure things out on the mound.
Yeah, I think like if I was them, Detmer's so talented, but it's a 4.3 ERA, a 4.99 ERA, and now a 5.4 ERA. I mean, it's going the wrong direction, and maybe a change of role is the right thing for him. Hey, before we leave the SEC, boys, I want to mention Arkansas. I was thinking about your expression bar fight meter, Kendall. Like, I feel like Arkansas's got an 80 bar fight meter. Like, they're super banged up on the mound, and they don't care. They're figuring it out anyway. They gave LSU a real headache over the weekend. I know some of those game 2 and game 3 scores were bloated, but I just really – Arkansas's 20-4 despite massive pitching injuries. I just love, to use your expression, Fitzy, I love the cut of their jib. I love the way they get after it.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing about Arkansas, too, is to give Fitz more props here is like he was really high on Hunter Holland coming out of the fall when he saw them in Fayetteville. And like he looked awesome in game 1 against LSU. Like his breaking ball was filthy. I mean, he was up to 94 from the left side. Like he looked like a bona fide absolute dude as a Friday night starter. So, that's a game changer for them as they, dig in the SEC play, and they still have guys like Hagen Smith and, Will McIntyre, et cetera. Hunter Holland's been really good for them.
Just a very fragile pitching formula. You could see it's basically the only thing they know going into a weekend. My interpretation is that it's going to be Holland and McIntyre, and they're going to run Hagen Smith into the first game they can win, and then just figure it out from there. And that's obviously that's not playing with 4 aces, but they're making it work. So God bless them. Boys, let's go to the ACC. Fitzy, give us a takeaway from the ACC.
A takeaway from the ACC. Well, Virginia is the real deal at this point. And I think, they lost Nick Parker. We don't know I don't know if there's been an update on that, but it sounds like he could be out a little while. Don't quote me on that, guys. But if you got to move Connolly early into the rotation, okay. I mean, he's got their best numbers in their whole staff anyway. And granted, it's been midweek and they haven't faced a juggernaut midweek schedule. But I mean, he has a track record. Friday night guy for regional team last year. I think they'll be just fine there. And their pitching continues to hold up, and they mash sweep Florida State, who it appears, Roons, I think maybe your instincts a week or two ago here were right about Florida State. They do appear to be in trouble. And I'm always the last guy to mash the panic button. I'm always playing the long game, but I'm nervous about Florida State. I think they've lost 9 out of their last 10. Not good, Bob. And I don't know, like, what's the fix here? Like, they're not really good in any phase.
And they're too young.
They look at their schedule this week at Florida and then Miami on the road. Not good.
Think about this, boys. Florida State, I mean, we all think Link Jarrett and Chuck Ristano and Rich Wallace are as good as it gets. Like, what they did at Notre Dame is historic in our sport, right? It's unprecedented. That said, Florida State is now 12-12. They're 3-6 in the ACC. They've already played Boston College and Pitt at home, which, again, Boston College we know is not, they're not going to finish last. They look like a regional team. But, in theory, those are series that Florida State should win. You've got 17 true freshmen on your roster. Wyatt Crowell has not pitched since March 11th. It's dicey. It's really dicey. How about I'm not panicking. Don't hear me wrong on this, but man, like, I feel like Louisville at 3-3 has, like, they won the series from Georgia Tech, but it was tight. They lost the series at Notre Dame. I just think, let me say it this way. I think Louisville is better than they're playing right now, and that could ultimately be a good thing for them. But I don't, like, if I'm Dan McDonnell, I'm looking at their 3-3 in the league, and I'm kind of pissed. Like, I'm kind of like, no offense to Notre Dame and Georgia Tech, but man, if I'm Dan McDonnell, I'm thinking we should be better than 3-3 right now.
Well, I think the big thing about Louisville is, when you look at their pitching staff as a whole, like, when I saw them, like, it was good. They're not going to have a great pitching staff. And the problem you run into with that sometimes is you're going to run into some teams, they're going to pitch and they're going to shut your offense down. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, you're going to lose a series like they did against Notre Dame. So that's the one negative to having just what I would consider an above average staff versus having an elite staff like a Wake Forest. I mean, speaking of Wake, I mean, the one thing that I kind of liked about them over the weekend is, and we know how talented they are on the mound, but one thing that I think is pretty cool about this team is they can win a variety of ways. They won with offense in the series opener. The last two days, Sean Sullivan and Josh Hartle were outstanding. And the thing that's crazy about Wake is they've been so good, and that's without Teddy McGraw. Like, imagine if he was healthy. Like, they would be just ridiculous.
It's nuts. You're right. I mean, they don't miss a beat sliding Sean Sullivan in there. I mean, Sean Sullivan is like, it's in some of the advanced metrics, he's number 2 in the whole country behind Paul Skeens in like Sierra, for instance. The hat tip to our friends at 643 Charts for providing our advanced stats this year. I mean, this guy is ridiculous, and obviously you get Rhett Lauder, and I mean, getting Cole Rowland through the transfer portal has been huge. You got a great 1-2 punch there with Cole Rowland from Dartmouth, setting up Cam Manassi, the All-American. I mean, here's the thing. Like, who in the ACC has a legit, elite pitching staff, right? Like, you look at the numbers and they'll tell you, okay, well, I mean, Wake Forest is number 1 in the country in ERA, guys. Like, that's bonkers. At Wake Forest, in that ballpark, that's bonkers. But, like, we know that's an elite pitching staff. But Virginia's number 2 in the country in ERA, 2.57. Will it hold up? I'm still not 100% sold, but I think it's good enough. Duke is 14th. It's kind of a patchwork deal there. I mean, you've got a great guy at the front with Jonathan Santucci and a great guy at the back and the freshman James Talon. And they got a lot of arm strength and young arms, but it's not like the horses. Louisville, you talked about, it's like very good. Statistically, they're great. They're, 16th in the country in ERA, but it's like, North Carolina statistically 20th. Like, none of those feel like elite pitching staffs. NC State 25th. I mean, Matt Willison's been great. Sam Highfield's been great, but like, it feels like Wake Forest is the only really true, like, high-end talent horses kind of a pitching staff like you've got in the SEC East.
Yeah, it's like there's the only dings on Wake Forest are like maybe I'm concerned about their defense. I don't know. I've seen them have a couple rough games, but it's not like they're fielding 950. They're not.
They're fielding 978 guys, third in the league,
Yeah.
37th in the country.
Yeah, and so I think I got to get over that. So what's left? The only thing they don't have is pedigree. Like none of those kids have been in a super regional. None of those kids have been in Omaha. Blah blah blah. But like they're really stinking good. Like to your point, Fitzy, they've got power. They've got guys like Pierce Bennett and Joey Hawk. That's his name, right? Joey Hawk.
Tommy Hawk.
Tommy Hawk. I always want to call him Joey. Tommy Hawk, where they can play a different type of game. Like you said on the mound, their rotation is amazing. And then you've got Manassi and they've got bullpen. Who's the kid from Tulane that they got that's pretty good in the
Michael
bullpen?
Massey, yeah.
Yeah, like
stuff.
they check every stinking box. I mean, it's really impressive.
Yeah, he might have been Tulane's Saturday guy.
He's going to be. He might be the Friday guy awake next year. I mean, well, Sullivan maybe. And it's Sullivan eligible this year. He might be.
Anyway. By the way,
was Northwestern going to Omaha, Kendall? Like all these transfers are dominating. Northwestern was going to win the Big Ten or something.
Hey, I did find out randomly that Dennis Cook is now the pitching coach at Northwestern.
No way.
Yeah,
they apparently hired him like a week and a half ago and didn't inform anyone that they hired him, but that's what I found out. We got to give Mike Gambino and the Fighting Eagles of Boston College some credit. I mean, once again, they won a weekend series. They took care of business against NC State, and they lost the middle game by 10 runs, and then bounced back and pitched really well in the finale to win it. So that's 3 series wins in a row for Boston College. How about that?
Yeah,
and they're just going to get better.
It's incredible. It's really incredible what they've done on the mound because and defensively they were terrible in both those areas last year. And what are they fielding right now? 977. Fourth in the league, and their pitching is holding up, kind of middle of the pack. You bring in those D3 transfers we've talked about. Chris Flynn's been awesome for them. Henry Leake's taken a step. I mean, I'm a little nervous long term. Like, will the pitching hold up all the way to the end? TBD. I'm not 100% sold on that, but boy, I mean, give them a ton of credit for what they've accomplished so far. And this was their first week. We're 6 weeks in the season. This was their first week at home all year.
Aaron can go cover the Boston Regional in a few months.
Oh, I'm in on that.
That's so great. Oh, that's got to happen. Come on now. That's got to happen.
If they host, you got to do it.
That would be a very cool story. And they finally got the ballpark to do it. You don't have to put in a bid at Fenway or anything.
Yeah, it's really cool. Their on-campus setup is really awesome.
Nice. It's nice.
Yeah. Hey, boys, let's go to the Big 12. Sure. Just utter chaos in that league right now. The only team that I feel like really if I had a daughter, the only team that I would let date my daughter in that league is West Virginia. Like every other team, I feel like I don't know whether you're bringing my daughter back at 11 or like 6 a.m. Like, I don't know what's going on with this league. Kendall, can you give us some clarity on?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you didn't say Oklahoma State because I was about to say they're going to get your daughter in a bar fight because that's just kind of the way they roll.
Yes.
But
yes, they do have a strong bar fight meter. We just needed to translate on the field.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine like going out for the night with Rock Riggio? Like, I bet he just gets in all sorts of trouble.
I would like
no
to
offense,
do that.
Rock.
Yeah, after the season.
Rock is a man of God, though. I will throw that out there. He's very devout.
And who's going to watch his dog Ruffles when he goes out? That's the other issue.
Is that his dog's name, Ruffles?
Yeah, isn't that great?
Ruffles,
is it really? Oh, that's amazing.
That moves him up 1 round in my book.
What to make of the Big 12, gents? Yeah, that's a great question. West Virginia has yet to play a conference game, so that'll happen soon. But they've got a really solid 1-2 punch with Blaine Traxel and Ben Hampton. So we'll see what they have. I actually like what they've done on the mound. J.J. Weatherhold offensively has been fantastic this year. But we'll see what they do in league play, but I like where they stand right now. But, I mean, Texas Tech was a different team in Austin over the weekend. They just did not hit with consistency. They obviously missed Brandon Beckwell out of the bullpen. Without him, their bullpen was a little bit lost against Texas. They were unable to hold the horns down. Oklahoma, we talked about them earlier. Kansas State's getting a little hot now. TCU. I think the big thing with TCU is I think if they can get healthy, I think they could be an elite team. Right now, Luke Savage is hurt. Curtis Burma on the plate is hurt. So they need to get healthy. But, Cam Brown's been a really big bright spot for them. I think he retired something like 18 or 19 in a row the other day against Kansas. So we're finally seeing Cam have the year that we thought he was capable of. I would agree with you that Oklahoma State, to me, is the most likely team to be a quote-unquote kind of national championship contender. But, keep an eye on Texas. I give David Pierce a lot of credit. Like, remember a couple years ago, they go to Globe Life, they get absolutely embarrassed. Like Landon Sims, I think, struck out like 13 straight dudes or something ridiculous. They looked awful. Well, what did they do that year? They went to Omaha and ended up in the Final Four. I'm not, ready to say that about this team just yet. But they padded their record against some patsies for a couple of weeks, but then they go against Texas Tech. They sweep that series, and they got some big performances. Like Charlie Hurley threw okay for them. Lucas Gordon threw well for them. Zane Morehouse has kind of moved to that bullpen role for them. He did a nice job out of the bullpen for them over the weekend. So they've started to be like a little bit better on the mound. And LeBaron Johnson starting against A&M on Tuesdays, but I still think he's a weekend guy moving forward. But then you look at Texas offensively, gents. Peyton Powell, he's kind of like their Murphy Staley this year. He's hitting 395. He's been really good for them. Eric Kennedy's gotten red hot, and then keep an eye on Dylan Campbell. He was hitting like 130 3 weeks ago. He's up to almost 260 now. If he gets rolling like he is now the rest of the season, that makes the complexion of that entire lineup vastly different. And then Porter Brown, a guy that the TCU kicked back again, finally staying healthy, and it's paying off for him. He's having a really good year for them.
I want to talk about Oklahoma State, because for me, if I had to pick one team in the league, as you said, that feels like an Omaha team, the safest bet for me is Oklahoma State. I just saw them lose 2 out of 3 in Lubbock last weekend, and I liked what I saw from Texas Tech, but I still feel like the separators for me, I just feel like there's more experience in the lineup for Oklahoma State. I mean, I love Texas Tech's young players, but they are pretty young in the lineup. Oklahoma State has a lot of experience and real firepower, and I really like their bullpen. I know Kendall and I maybe got different looks at that Oklahoma State bullpen, but and actually, I mean, Tech even beat their bullpen. They beat some of their better guys, Isaac Stevens and Nolan McLean, when I saw them last week. But I still think those guys have real stuff and the numbers to match. And Drew Blake around them, and there's some nice depth in that bullpen. I think it's actually a strength for them. They just need their starting pitching to hold up. I mean, Jerron Watts-Brown's been great. Ryan Hendry's been a little up and down. The Ben Abram kid they got from Oklahoma was really good in Lubbock, and that went pretty solid again this week. So maybe he's an answer, but it's like it's not like a prototype. Again, not like a horse, right? It's like a, mid to high 80s kind of pitchability righty, with a giant body. It's a little bit of a different look. But anyway, maybe they can. I think they have enough firepower in the mound and enough strength in the bullpen that they don't need to be elite in the rotation, and you've got Watts-Brown, who is elite. So I'll kind of take that combination, a real ace, a big time bullpen, in my opinion, with maybe 2 of the top 10 relievers in the country, Nolan McLean and Stevens. I mean, Stevens is like low slot, sidearm guy up to 94. It's nasty.
And his numbers are bonkers, to your point,
great.
Fitzy. Like he's got 9 appearances in 27 innings, all in relief. Like
Yeah.
they give him the ball and send everybody else home.
Yeah.
Yeah, the weekend I saw him, Drew Blake was like the best bullpen arm I saw. I mean, he was up to like 95 from the left side, if I remember. It's been a while.
The problem for Oklahoma State is that they've had a couple games where they've been run out of the gym, so their whole pitching staff looks terrible because the ERAs are just toast. And so it's going to take another month or two to clean those up. And I think for myself, I just got to kind of get past this. I will say this on the Big 12, though. Like, I think it's going to be really fun because, like, if you made me pick a favorite, I would reluctantly pick Oklahoma State. But I really feel like I just don't know, and almost anybody could win this league. Like, I legitimately, any of these teams. I mean, Kansas State.
Even Kansas?
Not Kansas. They can't. They're they're off to that. They got. But you know what I mean. Kansas State is 4-2 with Kansas State's 17-8, and now we didn't get a great look at them in Frisco, obviously, but I mean 17-8 for a cold weather school. That's a pretty good record for this point in the season.
Yeah, I feel pretty.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I feel pretty confident saying it's going to be one of either Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, or TCU, and Texas is the one dark horse there that I do agree with you, Kendall. Like it feels like maybe they're coming together a little bit, could be a factor, but for me they're right behind that top 3.
Well,
can I have the rest of the league, Fitzy? You want to make a wager?
Have the rest of the league by all means. It's yours.
Okay, so that means
I'll say
got
this about
Texas and West
real
Virginia.
quick though. I think we're going to find out kind of what they're made of this week. They get big series win against Texas Tech. Then they go to A&M tomorrow and face an A&M team that really, really needs a big win. And then they go to Oklahoma State. I might be wrong, but I think this is going to be a rough week for them. We'll see.
Yeah, it's called you know what cutting time.
Still
Kendall. So
water at the end of March or at the beginning of April is going to be
yep,
rather windy.
yep. Hey boys, let's go to the Pac-12.
Sure.
So our good friend Coach Farron and I got to talk to Andy Stankiewicz today. USC, I was not a believer at all, and I am starting to drink the Kool-Aid on USC. I didn't realize that they had constructed a bullpen that is like a legit. They've got 4 dudes at the back of their bullpen that each have 12 appearances that are getting it done. They've what. Here's the thing. After talking to Stanky, what dawned on me is what they're trying to do is kind of become the new Fullerton, where they're going to play catch, they're going to put the ball in play, and they're going to pitch and make you beat them. And, Fullerton's trying to find their way back to that right now. And USC, in theory, will be able to get their hands on different athletes than Fullerton. That coaching staff that Stanky put together has got 5 national championship rings between Andy Jenkins and Travis Jewett and Sergio Brown and Seth Etherton. I mean, I don't know. Like you were early on USC, Kendall. I was not buying that at all. I am really starting to sip on that Kool-Aid.
So I have a question for you. I'm going to pose you a question.
Please.
If I gave you Arizona State or USC, Arizona State sitting at 5-1 after taking a series from Arizona, and USC sitting at 7-2, who would you take the rest of the way between those two teams?
Boy, that's an excellent question.
Having seen Arizona State,
I would. I
think it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would take USC because I feel like they're bought into a more sustainable brand of baseball. Yeah. My concern with ASU is, first of all, we don't know if Ethan Long's coming back. We don't know if Nick McLean's coming back. They are playing a very young group. I think that's why you're having such a whipsaw season for Arizona State. I mean, you got freshmen and sophomores all over that lineup. I worry about ASU's ability to contain the other team's offense. It's not a great strike throwing team. It's not a great defensive team. That's what concerns me about ASU.
But USC isn't actually a very good defensive team either. They're fielding 969, which is about middle of the pack nationally.
Yeah, it's not awesome.
And like if you're going to play that Fullerton style of baseball, as you said, you got to play catch. And so, they're right now they're making up for it because they're scoring. They're second in the league in scoring. But is that sustainable? I don't know. I will say this: I'm 100% with you that I'm in on USC over the next 5 years. Because I love that coaching staff and their vision and their mix of skill sets. I mean, it's really impressive if they can keep that staff together, especially. And I absolutely am buying stock in USC. Hope I'm not too late. Hope the price hasn't gone up too much.
I think you can get a good price. Kendall knows a guy,
but I don't think I'm buying them as a regional team this year. I'm not ready to do that.
You know who I'm buying, I bought them like months ago. But how about Washington, gentlemen?
Yeah,
Washington goes on the road. Yeah. Somebody asked this question in chat earlier today. Washington would have been in the rankings had they taken care of business in midweek, but they had a stinker against Tulane. But at any rate, that was a really impressive weekend for them. And the thing about UW that's really intriguing is they've got some solid position players. They've got a really solid 1-2 punch in Kiefer Lord and Stu Fleslin. That's a really, really solid team. Like I think they are a regional team.
Yeah.
And you were
go ahead, Fitzy.
And to give Kendall, as he said, he has been on them. I think they were your preseason Omaha sleeper.
Omaha sleeper.
One of your sleeper.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about Omaha sleeper. They might have been my non-field 64, but I just go back to the fall when I was talking to JK, and he was just kind of like, to be really honest with you, he goes like, I think this 100% can be a regional team. Will it be? I don't know. But like it 100% can be. And so I just thought that was really interesting. And then you kind of dig into that team a little bit more as, Roons, kind of likes their position players. It's a really solid club.
Have you ever talked to a coach in the fall who's like, we're not going to be a regional team?
Yes, I do actually.
Okay. I don't hear that very much. Like it's I think everyone says we can be. Now will we? I don't know. Like I think that's kind of
well, I don't know. Well, it must be something about the Tims, because when I talk to Tim Corbin or Tim Tadlock in the fall, it's I don't know, man.
We're gonna miss regionals.
I don't know if we might get a roster together.
Corbin's always got the worst team of all time every fall. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
My favorite was a couple of years ago. Was it going in last year? And I was talking to him in the fall, and Corbs was like, hey, I'm just trying to, or maybe he told you something along these lines of like, I'm just trying to get Enrique to run the first. Like that's all I care about right now. Just getting him to run the first base.
No, I think what he said was, we're talking about the team speed. Like, oh, well, you got to get on base before you can steal second. It's like, all right, yeah, okay.
Oh, it's so good.
Hey, listen, I mean, he's the master. Obviously, he knows what he's doing when it comes to motivation. But anyway, here's the thing about Washington, guys.
Yeah.
This was really the first weekend that, I mean, you talk about why they're not ranked yet. Yes, they had the midweek loss to Tulane, but also like this is really their first quality series win. I mean, for this, it's Rhode Island, it's Utah, it's Northern Colorado, San Jose State, and then they split 4 at Santa Clara. So like, there you still have a long way to go. Now, let's not get too carried away. There's still plenty to prove, but this was a big weekend. Go to UCLA and
UCLA was vulnerable, Fitzy, right? Like UCLA, they didn't face Alonzo
lose.
Treadwell, who you could argue is their best arm. Kyle Karros was out with an ankle. AJ Salgado, the Division II transfer, still out. Dalen Reyes didn't play. I think Ethan Flanagan still hasn't pitched. So, but I hate saying that because I don't want to take away from Washington's win. You still got to go to LA and beat UCLA at Jackie Robinson Stadium. Like that's still a huge win. And I like that when it got hairy, UW was up for that. Like, when there was, it would have been easy for them to just take one win and go home. Yep. And they
can I say this real quick about UW too? Is like, they're a little bit like the week that Texas is about to have. This is a big week for UW because they're about to face an Oregon State program who's absolutely just owned them over, from the Pat Casey era and on. And that's going to be a really interesting series. Oregon State goes to Seattle. That's a big series for UW in terms of just changes and really just changing the whole perception of that program in the Pacific Northwest.
And it's a big series for the Beavers because they're 3-6 in league. Now they just won a series against Cal, which they really needed, but still they're still in a hole after, they lost the series to Wazoo and then Stanford. So, I think the jury is still out on Oregon State, but they pitched very well this past weekend, which was encouraging. They gave up 5-6 runs in the whole series. So, maybe it's coming together for the Beavers too. I'm intrigued by that series.
Kendall,
keep an eye on Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, they can hit with anybody. If you're trying to get into a messy offensive game with Oregon, good luck with that. Like Tanner Smith's been going off, and that's a very dangerous lineup.
And here's a take for you. Long-term in the Pac-12. I mean, obviously it's Stanford and UCLA. I think I still believe in Oregon as the number 3 team when the dust settles.
Interesting.
I mean, it's wide open. Like anybody could be that 3rd team right now.
How many runs would be scored if Oregon was sent to the Stillwater Regional?
That would be
quite a few.
Pack a lunch. Kendall, you wrote about ASU in the Digest on Saturday night, I believe. And I feel like I tend to poo-poo Arizona State because it's so close to home for me. But I would say this, like, I had written them off a few weeks ago. They're just so young. I feel like the roster's really flawed as far as run prevention goes. But I have to say that Willie Bloomquist and his staff have done a remarkable job. I mean, you get swept at home by Irvine, who's not having, is having a very uneven season for their standards. You lose a series to Mississippi State. Not many teams can say that right now. That's sorry about the dig.
Oh, I forgot about that. I don't know.
That's
sorry, Willie. I don't know if I'm in on your team anymore.
But here's the thing: like they're playing hard, and it's like there's that competitiveness that Willie had in there, and like the transfers. And by what I hear from local scouts is that ASU's really doing a nice job in the underclassmen recruiting of the high school kids. Like, and then I'm watching the game on the Pac-12 network last night, and it's they had 17,000 fans at Arizona State this weekend for that series. And it's this gorgeous stadium with every amenity you want. It's a big league yard. And then ASU is this gorgeous school that, if you're an 18-year-old male that likes pretty girls, like ASU is got your attention, right? Like there's a lot to like on this campus. So anyway, I'm bullish on ASU getting back to, significance in college baseball. It's just taking a minute.
It feels, and this is interesting because we keep talking about how maybe the gap between, the SEC and the West is widening, in the Pac-12 in particular, over the last decade or so. But all of a sudden, I feel like we've got a bunch of programs in the Pac-12 with new regimes that I feel like we all kind of want to buy stock in. Certainly, we talked about USC. I still think Oregon is on the rise under Coach Waz. Arizona State, you just talked about. I mean, in Washington with JK, I mean, it's, and Washington State is still like making progress. I know it's hard up there, but like there's, I don't know. It feels like maybe the trajectory is going back up. Some of these traditional powers in the league that have been down, I feel like are starting to reverse course. I think that's important. Like the Pac-12
No
needs
doubt.
Arizona State and USC to be strong.
Well, the one thing that's really interesting to me, I was talking to a pro scout about this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Arizona State and specifically Willie Bloomquist. And one thing that he kind of said was like, "Hey, like the professional ranks, like the industry, doesn't really know like what kind of coach that Willie Bloomquist is going to be." But like he said, "Hey, like that guy's like the perception of him in the pro industry was that he was incredibly smart and like incredibly hard nosed." And so like when you look at Arizona State, like the thing I did like that they did last year was like other than maybe like LSU, like did anybody play the NIL game harder than Arizona State? Like a West Coast school or a Western school.
Yep.
They went out and got like 5 or 6 guys out of the portal. And that's the one thing about Arizona State is like, it goes back to Roons' point on Tempe and Mill Street and things like that is like, if I'm a kid and I'm looking to go to a high profile program, like Arizona, and they're willing to pay NIL money, like Arizona State's really high on my list.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah, the whole league, to your point, Fitzy, is like Utah's got the perfect coach in Gary Henderson. Like every one of these schools has got almost like an ideal coach for who they are. And if SC is going to be good, look out. I mean, look out. I mean, it's probably not great news for the Big West, honestly, but who knows? I mean, maybe the Pac-12 can be outstanding and the Big West can figure it out too. It's hard to say, but hey, what about off the Power Five, boys? And then we'll kind of get to it.
I was going to say UCSB. I was going to stick out west. I feel like UC Santa Barbara is just one of those teams that's just right outside the top 25 for us. But you look at the job that like Mike Gutierrez and some of those guys have done on the mound. They've been really good on the mound, and once again, like wash, rinse, repeat. Like Andrew Checketts has a really good team. Shocker.
Yep.
And so I just am just so impressed with their overall consistency because it's like kind of going back to the fall, like. Yeah, as you kind of mentioned, like it looked like a team that might have a few holes, right? Like they weren't returning a lot of innings on the mound, and all of a sudden, they look like a finished product. They look like a complete team.
I could have this factoid wrong, but they've basically led the Big West in home runs and stolen bases for 3 consecutive years, and they're going to do it again this year. It's like I love that they've got a type. Donegal Fergus came back from pro baseball to be there again. We know how sharp Andrew Checketts is, and I'll never forget. Talking to an assistant coach who left was in the Pac-12, then the Big West, and now has left the West Coast, and just saying, hey, I said, give me your impressions of the Big West. And first words out of his mouth, Andrew Checketts is a badass, is what he said. Like he just said, could not be more impressed competing against that guy up close and personal. Like this dude is on it.
Can I tell you the job I want? I want to be a billionaire and be the NIL coordinator for UC Santa Barbara baseball.
Oh,
and just live in Santa Barbara and run their NIL program.
Do they have an
I'm getting
NIL
everybody.
program?
Like Paul Skeens, you ain't going to LSU, buddy. You're going to Santa
That's
Barbara.
Right. Oh, yeah. If all things are equal, Santa Barbara is winning, right?
I'll build a Aaron Fitt ballpark at Mike Rooney Field.
There we go.
Thank you for that. I'll just call out Coastal and Sam Houston.
Oh, you picked my pocket, Roons. I love it.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Coastal beat Texas State. Did they sweep or they just won 2 out of 3?
They won 2 out of 3, but they obliterated them in 2 of the games. They won 19-0 in the series opener.
Yeah, and then Sam Houston wins the series at Grand Canyon, which is a good series. That's a big win, obviously, and that puts Grand Canyon, to your point earlier, Kendall, in a tough spot. But yeah,
the first WAC series loss since 18.
It's crazy.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah.
Coastal, I mean, that is a big series. We are fairly high on Texas State.
Yeah.
This Coastal team, I mean, when they're really good, guys, they are an offensive machine, right? And this team this year, they rank in the top 10 in the country and batting and scoring, and I think they're 11th in slugging. I mean, it's a very offensive club. Peyton Eels, I think, had a big weekend for them. He's kind of been their guy, sitting like over 400 right now. It feels like they've done a really good job retooling that roster. I mean, there's a lot of, they bring in a lot of guys, not only through the portal, but the JUCO ranks, and they're just really good at recruiting. They cast a wide net. It's not like they're going to beat South Carolina and Clemson for the in-state guys, and so they go all over the place. And they've been doing it for a long time, and it's easy to kind of sleep on those guys a little bit, but they're consistently very good.
It is interesting, Aaron. A couple of their fans in our chat today, asked about, like, hey, do y'all think that they had the starting pitching to like win a regional. And really, like outside of Matthew Potok, like they haven't pitched at an extremely high level. So I'm just kind of curious to see if that holds up as the season progresses or changes.
I think that's the question. And you know what? Like in the year 2023, it feels like when the weather is warm in June, there's going to be a bunch of 12 to 11 games and regionals.
Yeah,
and like Coastal is equipped to win those kind of. Like I feel like we're going to have a lot of regionals that are going to look like the Stillwater regional last year. Like this is the way the game has gone. I know. Roons, you said you'll take the offense if it also means we have shorter games, which I think is just a weird. I still think that's a weird combination that doesn't feel sustainable.
Counterintuitive, yeah.
But I don't like having 1999 level or 1998 level.
Here he comes.
I don't like it. It's -5 bats, guys. This is we're on pace for more home runs than we had in 1998, aren't we? Like, isn't it? It's something. Yeah. It's absurd. Something's wrong. This is
we're out of balance.
Why are we out of balance? Why can't we ever stay in balance in this game? It's either it's the dead ball, the dead bat, or the opposite end of the spectrum. Why can't we figure this thing out? Why do we have to go through this every few years? I'm tired of it.
Yeah, I saw a good. I think it was a Texas highlight over the weekend. A guy for Texas hit a home run off the end of the bat and pulled it over the power alley, over the wall in the power alley.
I was at
from the end of his bat.
I was at a game at Duke a couple weeks ago. I might have already talked about this in the podcast. It was so absurd. It was a routine pop-up to left field. And I get it. It's a short porch with the blue monster. But, it was a routine pop-up. And all the scouts, talked about it even, the next day. How about that ball at Duke yesterday? Do you believe that went out? It's a joke. It's a freaking joke.
It is crazy. How about, speaking of home runs that weren't hit off the end of the bat, did you guys see the Garrett Gilmette walk-off home run for Texas?
No.
I did see the backflip.
It was they somehow they had a view of it from behind home plate. So Texas should have walked. They should have beat Texas Tech handily on Sunday, but they weren't clean down the stretch, and Texas Tech came back and tied it. And then is it Garrett Gilmette? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, the Kendall? USC transfer.
Yeah, he hit. It was a 2-0 fastball, middle in and up, and he hit it, to Oklahoma. I mean, he just annihilated this ball. He knew it immediately. It was, bat flip. It was not disrespectful, I didn't think. It was just hey, you hit a home run and you knew it from the second it made contact with the bat. It was a pretty cool moment for him, just one of those no doubters off the bat.
What was Blake Burke hit a home run 471 feet over the weekend against A&M?
Crazy.
There's been so many absurd home run lengths that it's they've lost all meaning, guys.
Hey, let me end us on this and then we'll shut her down. So Dylan Cruz, we're through 6 weeks, boys. This is week 7 of the regular season of college baseball. Dylan Cruz is hitting .531. My question to you is, what will be his final batting average? If he hits 300 the rest of the way, that means he's going to be over 400, right? Am I doing the math right?
I'm going to say 462.
Ooh, that's a great guess. Fitzy?
That is a great guess. Give me 463, Bob.
Oh, look at him. Trapping Kendall. I'll go 441. Kendall, we're squishing you in the middle there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, man, what a special player to watch. I mean, that guy is.
It's a generational. Phenomenal. It is truly. We toss around maybe we toss around the term generational talent too much. You hear that from time to time. It's a true generational talent. I mean, it really feels like Mike Trout 2.0 is what it feels like. It's just special. Enjoy the ride.
Hey, did the Rice Arms have we ever had? I feel like we have. To me, if I'm a scouting director right now, Dylan Cruz is going 1 and Paul Skeens is going 2. Yeah. Has that happened before in college baseball?
Cole and Bauer went 1 and 3. I think that's the closest we had.
Yep, I think you're right.
What's funny is I feel like it's those two and then everybody else. Although Rhett Lauder is probably firmly entrenched that number 3 spot, I would think.
Yeah, but you can't take him over Skeens, right? Skeens is just
I would say Skeens, but I haven't seen Rhett Lauder
for sure Skeens. For sure Skeens. It's not close. And I love Rhett Lauder, I do, but it's not close. But Neiman, Umber, and Townsend, I know they were all in the top 10. Did Neiman go 1?
I think Neiman went 1, but I thought Humber or Townsend. I think it was 1 4 10 or something, or 1
3 10, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, we're watching history. It's amazing.
Yeah, we got our Golden Spikes winner, our D1Baseball Player of the Year winner.
I mean, it's
6 weeks in the season.
It feels like a 2-man race between Cruz and Skeens. That's isn't that bonkers? Right now, I mean, Skeens what he's doing is also historic, and like he's actually as historic as Dylan Cruz is. Like Skeens is giving him a run for his money. It's absurd on the same
Yeah.
team.
It's crazy. It's so fun. And the LSU fan base is so on fire right now, which is awesome. Hey, it was 3, 4, and 8. So Matt Bush was the first pick in the 2004, and then Verlander went second, and then it was Humber 3, Neiman 4, Wade Townsend 8. So there you go. We by the way, we beat Jeff, right? We beat him in 2004, the year after, with my man Jason Urquidez, a little sidewinder from Central Arizona College. You guys were there in 2005 in Omaha, right? When he was
absolutely.
Old Urks. So I'll never forget the OG Wayne Graham came up to us in the handshake line. He says, "That boy right there going to win you some games." And I was like, I wanted to go to a tattoo parlor and like have that quote put on my forearm. Like it was like just so thrilling. You guys can imagine, but as a young coach being in the dugout opposite Wayne Graham and like Augie Garrido, like I could have tinkled myself. Like these guys were so intimidating. It was so awesome. And then Wayne Graham actually speaks to you after the game. You're like, holy crap, I'm never taking another shower. What are we doing here?
Well, I'm pretty sure you tinkled yourself the first time we met.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure of it. Yeah.
This podcast has officially gone off the rails, and I, for one, love it.
Thank you.
We're also 61 minutes of heaven at this point.
Well done. All right, boys, let's cap it right there. We will catch everyone midweek for the preview pod. That was a blast last week, and now we've got our ace back, Fitzy, on normal rest. And that is it. We'll catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.